In the poisoned badlands where fertile soil gives way to cracked stone and mineral-rich dust, life begins already under siege. Here, among thorn-choked plains and subterranean caverns laced with toxic runoff, a Nidoran male is born. Small, alert, and already armed with venom glands beneath developing horns, it enters a world where hesitation is fatal. The air carries the metallic tang of minerals and decay. Every vibration through the ground is a warning. Survival, from the first breath, is not learned, it is demanded. As a juvenile, the creature hugs the margins of the wasteland, feeding on hardy roots, carrion, and mineral deposits that would poison lesser organisms. Its metabolism adapts early, learning to process toxins into usable biochemical energy. Muscles thicken around a compact skeletal frame designed for sudden bursts of movement rather than endurance. The ears rotate constantly, triangulating sound. The body stays low. Predators roam above, and rival species burrow below. To live here is to master anticipation. Adolescence brings transformation. The body elongates, the horn calcifies, and neural pathways associated with aggression and territorial awareness intensify. This intermediate form, still vulnerable, but no longer prey tests boundaries constantly. It charges intruders not to kill, but to measure resistance. Each clash teaches it the physics of impact, the importance of angle, momentum, and timing. Survival is no longer reactive. It becomes strategic. Then, under sustained environmental pressure, scarcity of food, escalating competition, and prolonged exposure to toxic minerals, the final transformation occurs. Bone density increases dramatically. The spine reinforces, allowing the upper body to carry immense muscle mass without sacrificing balance. The horn becomes a hardened drill of layered keratin and mineral fusion, capable of penetrating rock, armor, and flesh alike. Neural development shifts again, prioritizing spatial dominance, threat assessment, and controlled aggression. Nidoking emerges. This is no mindless brute. Nidoking stands upright, not as a display, but as a calculation. Height grants visibility across territory. Each footstep lands with deliberate weight, sending low-frequency vibrations through the ground, signals to rivals and warnings to prey. Its hide, thick and ridged, absorbs impact and resists puncture, while subdermal toxin sacs regulate venom flow with precision. Poison is not wasted. It is conserved, delivered only when necessary. Within its domain, Nidoking establishes hierarchy through presence alone. Lesser predators retreat at the sound of its breath, a deep, resonant exhalation that echoes through rock corridors and open plains. It hunts not by pursuit, but by control. Escape routes are collapsed. Ground is fractured beneath fleeing prey. When it charges, it does so once, with purpose. The environment itself becomes a weapon, shaped by strength and foresight. Yet even apex organisms face challenge. From the deeper caverns emerges a rival colossus, drawn by seismic disturbance and territorial intrusion. The air tightens. Dust hangs motionless. Nidoking lowers its center of gravity, tail anchoring into the soil. This is not a frenzy, it is a standoff. The first strike comes not from force, but from positioning. A sudden ground shift destabilizes the opponent, followed by a single, devastating horn thrust, aimed not to kill, but to incapacitate. Dominance is established. The wasteland falls silent again. Rarely, a genetic divergence appears an anomaly known as the shiny variant. Its coloration shifts toward deep cobalt and muted steel, the result of altered mineral absorption during development. These individuals are seldom seen, not because they are weaker, but because their presence reshapes territory entirely. In folklore, they are regarded as omens, guardians, or harbingers, symbols of balance through destruction. As seasons erode the land further, Nidoking remains. It does not migrate. It endures. By controlling population, breaking dead ground, and redistributing minerals through its movements, it becomes an unintentional architect of the ecosystem. Life adapts around it, not despite it. In the end, Nidoking is more than predator. It is a living monument to survival. Under extreme pressure, a warlord forged by poison, stone, and silence. A single husk emerges from the coal-black earth. A soft, fevered body, no larger than a human fist, curled within a cocoon of ash and filament. The world around it is bitter, a winter that has run too long. The air a glass-thin knife that steals heat from exposed flesh. Here, in the cracked margins between frozen river and wind-scoured scrub, life that can't keep its own fire dies quickly. From this crucible, a juvenile is born not armed with claws or teeth, but with a suite of physiological compromises honed for one imperative: to generate warmth where warmth no longer exists. The larval stage is a study in concentrated economy. Muscles are compact and richly supplied with mitochondria, a dense latticework of cells tuned for intensive oxidative metabolism. Fat stores are compacted beneath a flexible exoskeletal plate, chemically rich in long-chain lipids that burn slowly and cleanly. A microbial consortium in the gut, carried from parent to offspring in silk-like secretions, specializes in oxidizing refractory organic compounds and releasing heat as a byproduct. The larva moves with a low, deliberate rhythm, conserving energy, sensing microgradients of warmth with filamentous sensilla that read the subtlest shifts in air pressure and thermal flux. In a world where a single hour of exposure can mean death, these tiny decisions when to curl into the warmth of a sun-warmed stone, when to feed on a withered leaf rich in hydrocarbons, determine survival. As it matures, the organism undergoes a transformation that reads like evolution made visible. Tissue architecture rearranges. Where compact larval muscles once favored endurance, new fascicles develop with rapid contractile myofibers capable of violent, short bursts. The trunk extends. A lightweight, semi-flexible endoskeletal scaffold supports broad, overlapping wing surfaces. These wings are not delicate paper but multi-layered membranes, studded with scale-like plates that serve three convergent functions: to insulate, to radiate, and to modulate airflow. The scales themselves are pigmentary and structural, microplatelets that can shift in orientation to change the wing's emissivity. Beneath them lie arrays of capillary-like channels filled with a heat transfer hemolymph that can be rapidly pumped to radiative surfaces or shunted away to avoid cellular overheating. Brain development is no less radical. Neural tissue swells in the optic and antennal centers. Circuits that once governed simple foraging become integrated with high-bandwidth processing, devoted to spatial pressure gradients, thermal imaging, and social chemical codes. Volcarona's sensory world is a map of heat and motion. The rustle of frozen grass becomes a pressure cue, the shudder of a distant predator, a faint thermal signature. Motor control evolves in tandem wing beats, are finely graded, producing not only lift, but sculpted vortices and shock fronts that can unbalance an opponent or lift a drifting ember into a defensive smokescreen. Every movement is a negotiation between aerodynamics and thermodynamics. The ecology that shaped these adaptations is uncompromising. Volcarona occupies a narrow niche in an ecosystem punctuated by extremes. Long winters when cold is the dominating force, and brief summers when the landscape floods with insects and fermenting plant matter. It is an apex ectothermic endotherm, an organism that straddles two metabolic strategies capable of sustained internal heat production during the lean season and strikingly efficient energy use during abundance. The wings serve as solar collectors as well as heat radiators. On still days, an adult will orient itself to maximize incoming radiation, fluffing scales to trap warmth like a living parabolic mirror. When feeding, it does not chase broadly. It hunts with a deliberateness born of metabolic thrift. Low, sweeping patrols along thermal corridors where prey clusters congregate, sudden downward strikes that combine suction with thermal shock to immobilize soft-bodied targets, and a precise tolerance for distance that keeps its core temperatures steady. Social structure around these creatures is subtle and hierarchical. Adults are largely solitary, but they exhibit structured aggregations around heat sources and breeding roosts. Dominance is rarely decided by blunt force. Instead, it is maintained through ritualized displays of thermal control and chemical signaling. Victory, here, is measured in territory retained and energy conserved. When we step back, beyond the glow and the drama, what remains is an elemental story of adaptation. Against winters that seem intent on folding the world into glass, this creature persists by measuring, by timing, by converting scarcity into ritual. In local tales, it is the sun's wrath and the hearth's salvation, a living ember that walks. In ecological truth, it is something at once humbler and greater. A specialist whose existence recasts a frozen landscape into a place where heat, fleeting, earned, and fiercely guarded can be found.